Tonight, the ear potato leaf beetle has been introduced to Niue, what researchers hope will tackle an invasive weed, but not all locals are on board. Donald Trump has been elected as the 47th President of the United States. So what does this mean for Niue? And Prime Minister Dalton Tangilangi announces changes to the ministerial portfolios. Ke he tau alanga waka osi ha Niue whekai, whakalofalahi atu ke he taula anga he waka he o whanga whakapuloa. Greetings and welcome to BCN News. Leading our bulletin tonight, Niue has welcomed a new resident, the ear potato leaf beetle, an Asian native that's been promoted as the answer to Niue's invasive ear potato vine, known locally as hoi. Niue became the first country in the Pacific this week to introduce the beetle, but as BCN News found, not all here have open arms. Here's the story. Meet Niue's newest resident. A tiny red beetle here to tackle a big problem.
We did a ranking of some of the worst weeds that we have here on the island, and the ear potato actually came up quite high, locally known as hoi.
This week, Manaki Whenua Landcare Research from New Zealand delivered what they hope is the solution, the ear potato leaf beetle.
We brought over 200 eggs from New Zealand to release in Niue. Today we've released 30 little baby larvae which will feed upon the ear potato leaves. They will grow to adult beetles within a month and then continue their life cycle fighting the hoi.
A fast-growing vine originally from Asia, the ear potato was introduced as a food source to the Pacific. It's now become one of the major invasive weeds in Niue and other Pacific Island countries.
The beetles will only eat the poisonous type of ear potatoes. The beetles themselves are very safe. If you see them, you can pick them up.
The beetle has been extensively studied in the United States and was first released in Florida in 2012.
The beetle has been very successful in reducing the growth rate and the size of the bulbils of the ear potato.
Niue is now the first to trial the beetle within the Pacific.
This morning we did the official release of the ear potato beetle with the Minister of Natural Resources, Honourable Mona Inu, and also High Commissioner to Niue, Excellency Mark Gibb.
Did they ever do a test here?
But not all locals are welcoming the new biocontrol bug.
You know, normally before something is done, you do have a pilot program and you do discuss it with the community.
This Alofi North resident says the public should have been consulted first before the introduction of the bug.
I know nothing about it. Do you know anything about it? Do the people in the community know anything about it? Nobody knows anything about it.
Meanwhile, Niue continues to battle biocontrol woes.
Hoi is nothing in comparison to these other invasive species, which are rife in our backyards.
On Monday, stakeholders met to discuss future biocontrol targets for Niue.
We are hopeful of determining more biocontrol targets for Niue.
We're also interested in learning more about your other invasive species and finding other ways we can collaborate and help reduce the impacts.
As researchers await the results of this new bug, locals hoping it doesn't add to the problem. Moana Makapelu, BCN News. President Donald Trump is back in the White House after a historic win. He is the second president in history to serve non-consecutive terms and the first convicted criminal to win an election. On Tuesday, millions across the United States headed to the polls in what's been labelled the most divisive presidential campaign in history. Polls leading up to the election indicated a neck-and-neck race between Trump and Democrat candidate Vice President Kamala Harris, but it was a clean sweep for Trump on election night as he claimed key battleground states, including the largest swing state of Pennsylvania, to secure over 290 electoral college votes. 55-year-old nurse Angela Siaki Winter, who hails from the village of Avasele, has lived in the USA for 37 years. She spoke to BCN News the morning after the election from her home state of California, where she voted.
Now, I've lived through quite a few elections now in the United States. And I noticed that this particular one, people were, I think it was out of fear, but people were very short with each other. And so what happened was, for the greater good of democracy as was intended in the United States, which everybody had a voice, everybody had the freedom of speech. Everybody had the freedom to live with no fear and to practice what they believe in. I think people thought that with either candidate, if you were on the opposite side of who won, that you were going to lose all that. But for me, I ended up going, who I voted for was really an internal conviction, because I didn't feel that either candidate really was somebody that I would like to sit down and spend my valuable time just listening to, because I think that both of them had things that the opposite side would feel very strongly about. So I had to really dissect it down to what I felt was in line with my core conservative Niuean Pacific Island roots, which at the base of that is traditional family, core family beliefs, core family values, and how can we preserve that and go into the future. I have a 1-year-old granddaughter. How can we go into the future with hope?
So what does this election result mean for Niue? BCN News spoke to the US Ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, Tom Udell, during his visit to Niue for the Pule Whakamotu celebrations last month.
Whatever happens in the presidential election, our foreign policy will change a little bit, but for the most part be about helping and working with democracies, helping bring countries up, putting a variety of different programs in place to help people prosper. And so I don't envision any big changes between the relationship of Niue and the United States as a result of the presidential election.
Donald Trump will officially be sworn in on January 20 next year. Prime Minister Dalton Tangelangi has announced a reshuffle to the government's ministerial portfolios. The changes come as a result of the public referendum on constitutional amendments held in August last year. The Prime Minister made the announcement at the sitting of the Whono Ekepule yesterday. Here's Esther Pavihi with more.
Prime Minister Dalton Tangelangi made the announcement on changes to ministerial portfolios in his opening address to the Whono Ekepule yesterday. Going forward, the Department of Taonga Niue will come under the ministerial responsibility of the Prime Minister. There will also be changes to the civil list, with the removal of members assisting ministers and the creation of associate ministerial positions. The associate ministers will apply to the 4 current members of the Cabinet, with the Prime Minister and the 3 ministers taking on associate ministerial responsibilities to assist with each other's portfolios. Prime Minister Tangelangi also announced changes to the public enterprise sector or state-owned enterprises. He told the Whono Ekepule that the draft bills for these changes will be presented to the Assembly over the coming months. The sitting of the Whono Ekepule yesterday was presided over by Interim Speaker Honourable Billy Talangi, as Speaker Hima Douglas is on duty travel overseas. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
Niue is likely to be affected by 1 to 2 cyclones, according to Niue's Meteorological Service. The tropical cyclone season officially began on Friday and is marked to end on 30th April next year. Niue's Met Service Director Rossi Misiepo says although Niue is predicted to be at low risk for the cyclone season, locals are being asked to take precautionary measures. According to the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, the Southwest Pacific region is expected to be affected by 6 to 10 cyclones. The first cultural knowledge symposium of its kind was launched in Niue last week, led by Niue academics Dr. Jess Pasisi and Io Aleke Va'avai. The Matala e Tōme Niue Knowledge Conference was held over 2 days at the University of the South Pacific in Paliasi, drawing participants from across the motu with the aim to capture Niue knowledge holders. Here's the story. Getting down to the roots of Niue Indigenous knowledge.
And it's a great opportunity to hear more Niue stories from Niue people. I think that's really at the heart of what we're driving here.
Locals from across the motu sharing their wealth of traditional wisdom.
We're very grateful to have a lot of our tupuna, Lota Matala, Taupulutu, who live locally and still have that indigenous knowledge of a tangata Niue.
It's the first symposium of its kind to be held in Niue, after the conference was first launched in Aotearoa in December 2022.
We're hoping to be really creative about how we go about taking knowledge into the future. So I think one way is
having it recorded and then available in repositories or archives for future generations.
From the spiritual realm to domestic life, fishing in the ocean, and knowledge of the bush. No subject off limits.
That's the beauty of using wangahau niue, or having an understanding of our culture where, that energy flows with the conversation. There may be a naughty conversation or maybe a conversation that is serious, depending on what the individuals are talking about. And I really like that.
More than 50 turned out over the 2 days. For everyone here, there was something to learn and something to share.
And listening to some of the stories from our mamatua, Vainga Tukutonga, and Lose, and Billy telling it, the thing is, we all accept each other's stories.
With hopes there'll be more cultural tūtala like this.
When I was young, I never thought of these things, you know what I mean? In my time. But now, having to be one of the elder in the village, in the community, and I started thinking about, I think we need to embrace and do something about it.
A bigger population in Aotearoa and Australia. I think there's opportunities to engage more with the people who have gone to those places and understand a little bit more about, why they've made that move and how they still connect back here to Niue. And so if we can kind of have a seasonal or a cyclical kind of move around, I think that will be good for all.
These living libraries of Niue language and culture motivated to not be the last. Moana Makapilu-Lee, BCN News. Transformation of High9 International Airport car park is almost complete. BCN News spoke with Downer Group project manager Craig Smart as the team wraps up renovations.
Downer Group's project manager Craig Smart says their last remaining items and equipment will be shipped out by the middle of this month as they begin to clear out their Hui Hui base this week. He confirmed that the Hainan International Airport is ready for night flights, with an inspection flight successfully completed on the 15th of October.
We finished the work in mid-October, and we had an inspection flight on the 15th, and that was satisfactory. All the new work passed, the lights and everything else have been inspected and acceptable. So the airwork's 100% finished and 100% ready for night flights.
Craig Smart has also confirmed that 2 local workers who worked with Downers here are now contracted in another project currently underway in Tuvalu. He sincerely thanked all stakeholders and service providers that have been working and very helpful throughout the team's stay on the island.
Our next project is on Tuvalu. That project's already started. So some of the people that are here doing the asphalt and other jobs, they've been on Tuvalu for some time, and it's now getting close to actually going to make the asphalt and lay the asphalt. So we've got a couple of people in the local crew that we're going to second from Niue for a short-term contract on Tuvalu to drive trucks for the asphalt work. So that's a skill they learned here. They did it well. So we're going to give them a job between now and probably February, March of next year.
This project cost $41.6 million as an aviation infrastructure upgrade project funded by the Government of New Zealand. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
Locals across the Motu took part in the world's largest peace torch relay this week. From the young to the elderly, many hitting the road on foot and bike as a symbolic peace torch was handed through village to village. Promoted by Shi Chin Moi Oneness Home Peace Run, who arrived in Niue for the first time this week, the peace run wraps up the last leg in the Pacific region.
Founded in 1987 by Indian-born poet and philosopher Sri Chinmoy, who spent his childhood and youth in India before moving to New York in 1964. The global torch has been held by world leaders like Nelson Mandela and public figures like Muhammad Ali. Pope Francis lit the torch to begin the European Peace Run for this year.
I'm one of the coordinators for the Sri Chinmoy Oneness Home Peace Run. which is a global torch relay. Started in 1987 by Sri Chinmoy, the founder. He was a great lover of peace and also an athlete, and he loved running, so he combined the two, and he started in 1987, and since then it's been to over 160 countries around the world.
The 5-member team, who volunteers their time and self-funds their trips, are spreading the message of peace on the island, meeting with Niue Prime Minister Dalton Tangilangi and his cabinet ministers. Youths from the various communities also took part in the run and held the torch. The Alofi South Women's Group also had a chance to hold the torch. The organization partners with local schools, community groups, sporting organizations, city and state government departments.
So this is the final leg of the Peace Run for 2024. Our team, our international team, actually have just come from Tahiti, Cook Islands, and then Niue is our final country for 2024. Very special for us because it's also the first time the Peace Torch has been to Niue.
Traveling all the way from Italy, Sandro Cincarini said the highlight for him is the people that he meets from the different countries. The International Peace Run relay teams are made up of runners from all walks of life who take time off from their jobs or studies to join the team. The teams have simultaneous relays taking place across the world.
I really love the atmosphere it brings with it, and that drove me year after year to participate. And over the years, I got to see that I got to love what's common in every human being rather than what's different.
The Global Torch has visited almost every country with over 150 nations and territories, touching the lives of millions of people, and is headquartered in New York. The team departs the island tomorrow. Mersa Takala, BCN News.
The Niue Health Division has issued a notice informing the community that cases of impetigo, commonly known as school sores, have recently been identified. Impetigo is a contagious skin infection that appears as red sores around the nose, mouth, hands and legs. According to the Health Division, 3 cases of school sores have been identified and reported, but there are concerns there could be more unreported cases in the community. Parents are being advised to keep their children home if they have contracted the infection until sores have healed. Meanwhile, there are 4 active COVID-19 cases and 2 recoveries. Anyone experiencing symptoms is encouraged to practice safe COVID-19 measures. 6 locals have been awarded with a Manaki Scholarship from the New Zealand High Commission. The Manaki Scholarship offers professional development training in New Zealand in areas such as trade and diplomatic relations to support and strengthen career pathways into Niue's public and private sectors. Recipients include Brittany Leomotu and Diane Paumale for public sector leadership, Atron Tatui and Jare Ringamoto for trades policy, and Catherine Ikitule and Chamberlain Pita on Pacific diplomatic training. Awardees were acknowledged in a ceremony at Tapeu Hill on Tuesday. New Zealand High Commissioner Mark Gibbs spoke to BCN News.
My hopes for these young people is that they do come back and make a difference. And I don't mean get off the plane and go in the door and bang, this is where, but really come back and challenge some of the thinking, offer new ways of doing things, but in a collaborative way. So it's really about just providing empowerment and stimulation that they will come back and provide, a different way of looking at things. And then, as I said before, they'll have these networks they can draw on to also support them as well.
Among those also recognised was Jodisi Tohovaka of Makefu, who completed his training in air conditioning installation services in August. Tohovaka undertook a 3-month work placement with Air Conditioning Installation Services Limited. To sports, winning 2 gold medals and 1 silver medal is a huge accomplishment for local fitness enthusiast Janam Hopotoa. Janam recently took part at the IFBB Joe Olberg Wellington Classic regional competition last month. He spoke to BCN News.
It was an amazing moment for local bodybuilder and gold medalist Janam Hopotoa as he proudly wears his 3 gold medals from his recent participation at the IFBB Joe Olberg's Wellington Classic Regional 2024 competition. This is his first bodybuilding competition at this level abroad.
The events that I just participated on the 5th of October, it's called the Joe Olberg's Wellington Classic. So it's an IFBB pro event. So it's comprises of different bodybuilders from across the South Island, and it's an open one as well, regional. So it's a mix of natural and bodybuilders on gear as well. So this is my first time ever competing at this event, and as a natural, and from Niue as well.
He shared how he had to prepare himself leading up to the event, as it took a lot of sacrifices, hard work and dedication, and it's all been worth it in the end.
A lot of training, committed training, consistency, and with work and everything else, you really have to find the time and balance it out. So it consists of leading up to the event. I had to do an 8-week diet, so a progressive cut, which means you have your carbs, everything is measured, and your proteins, your greens, and progressively you cut your carbs every week until you go keto, and then your body will switch into a mode where it'll start chewing on the reserves, the fats, and you just kind of monitor it. And it's really tough, but if you really want to go in, and if you're hungry for the results and you want the transformation, you have to be committed and disciplined to, carry forth.
He hopes that his achievement is an inspiration to young Niueans on the island, that anything is possible if you have the passion to pursue something.
I just wanted to encourage the young ones, the youth. It's always been about motivating and helping them get into the sports, and I hope that this may be a way to show them that anything is possible, given that, whatever it may be, sports, any discipline that you're keen on, as long as you put your mind to it, surround yourself with the right people, and also just go for gold.
Jinam thanks his family and everyone that sponsored and supported him to make this journey a reality. He plans to take part in future bodybuilding competitions. Mersa Takala, BCN News.
Keeping with sports, fresh off from their performance at the 2024 Oceania Regional Powerlifting Championship held in Nauru last week, the Niue powerlifting team says they couldn't be prouder of their result, as 9 countries from the Oceania region took part in the competition. Here's more on this story.
Speaking from New Zealand via Zoom yesterday, Niue Powerlifting Federation President Tony Edwards shared more on the Niue's team's performance after scooping 2 gold medals and 3 silver medals. This also included 5 individual Best Overall Awards and 3 Overall Best Team Awards. Edwards, who is also the president of the Oceania region as part of the executive committee to the International Powerlifting Federation Board, said it took about 4 months for the team to prepare for the event.
With 3 of us being there, myself, Sydney and Maxine, we're also international referees category 2. So we also officiated the competition at the same time we competed. So I competed the 120 plus category Master 2, and Sydney participated in the Masters 1. With the 105s, which is the 84 plus, and also with Maxine competing as a junior at the 84 plus.
Overall, Edwards is happy with their performance as both officials and athletes. Nauru is seen as a powerhouse in powerlifting, scooping 69 gold medals. He thanks all their sponsors and the unwavering support of all their families and friends in making their participation possible.
So we were fortunate with a little team going to Nauru. We were able to be presented with 5 medals. Myself with a gold and a silver, and Maxine with a gold, and Sydney with 2 silvers. So with a total of 5 medals, we got 2 golds and 3 silvers. So which is a pretty good outcome for our little team going into Nauru, knowing that Nauru are a bit of powerhouse in powerlifting.
The event brought together over 100 powerlifters from Fiji, Solomon Islands, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Australia, New Zealand, and Nauru. The next event is scheduled for New Zealand next year. Mersa Takala, BCN News.
And on our feature segment tonight, he's one of Niue's most renowned artists. Meresa Takala sat down with award-winning painter, printmaker, poet and writer John Pule. Here's his story.
John Pule was born in Liku and later moved to New Zealand with his mom and sister. He first discovered his love for poetry in 1980, and 6 years later, his passion for painting began.
I went to New Zealand with my mum and my sister, and I didn't make it to high school. I was expelled at 14. In 19 1980, I discovered poetry. In 1986, I started painting. And in 1990, I sold a painting. And since then, I have lived off my artwork.
Pule's first exhibition began in the late 80s, but it wasn't until 1992 that he sold his first painting.
My vocation started, say, 1988, and then by 2000, I was able to kind of say that maybe it's a good opportunity, just to keep going and see what happens.
His paintings are inspired by his natural surroundings, such as insects and the ocean. A painting for him can take up to 2 weeks to complete. One of the highlights of his work is the portraits he did for his family.
But the painting you see behind me, this is something that I started doing about 2010. And the kind of painting you see behind me is to do with living in the kind of environment that I live here in Niue, surrounded by, forest, insects.
He said people are always going to be critical of his work, but that doesn't deter him from what he loves doing. His advice to any young Niueans wanting to pursue a career in the art world?
You just follow your own passion and your own reasons why you want to do it. But you got to have a purpose, and the next thing is, what do you want to paint about? Do you want to paint about trees, flowers, birds and the bees? Or do you want to paint about history? The history of a country, or personal history, or family history. And those are, in my books, are more important than, trying to paint a flower. It's best to kind of paint things that are important to you and to your people.
The 50-year-old artist has some of his work displayed throughout Australasia, with past exhibitions as far as Chile, Berlin, and recently in New York. Pule is also a published writer and poet and was a recipient of the New Zealand Order of Merit for the services to the arts in 2012. Mersa Takala, BCN News.
That's our news bulletin for tonight. You can join us for our Wangahau Niue news bulletin next Tuesday. A special whakalofa atu to our viewers from across the region and to our partners at Pacifica TV. I'm Moana Makapelu Lee, Monuina e pō.